We are privileged to have an opportunity to talk with two individuals who are, for us, emblematic of the kind of leadership that we admire and that we would like to see grow. Those of you who have taken a few minutes to look at the bios have seen information about Gilbert and Jacki Cisneros. And I'm not going to make this a pop quiz to say what you've read, but instead I will share that which I think can be the runway to what is going to be a fun, and I know that for us, a very exciting conversation. Gilbert Cisneros is an individual who has served his country in many different ways. He and his wife, Jacki Cisneros, who is a communication specialist, been a broadcaster, and active, involved in the community in many different ways. Together as a couple and as a family of two wonderful sons, bring to today's discussion a focus on education that we would like to know more about. And I know the story begins for someone like myself, who's a People magazine reader, with something that I am going to say, but I also want to acknowledge, as I do this run-up, that these are two individuals who bring to their lives a lot of intentionality, a lot of thought, and a lot of commitment. And all of that got unleashed in a very particular way a couple of years ago. And so I'm going to start the way I started when I first met Gil, and I'm going to ask you both. So what was it like when the two of you realized that you had the winning ticket for the California lottery and you were winning a gigantic amount of money? Just tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, it was exciting. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You know, I worked, as you mentioned, I worked in TV news at the time that we won. So when I came to work that night at 2 a.m., actually I was late, I was 30 minutes late. And everyone was kind of joking that, oh, we thought you won the lottery, you weren't going to come to work. And I'm like, that's kind of a stupid thing to say. Like, it's 2:30 in the morning, I just got a donut at Winchell's, that's why I'm late. I'm here. So, but then it came out that, you know, the winning numbers were from an area that we lived in Pico Rivera, at a little food place. And I remember, because not too long before we won, maybe a month or so prior, someone won in Iowa, the largest jackpot. And I remember thinking, oh, $300 million, like 300 people should win $1 million. Like, that would be really good. So when I saw that it was one winning ticket, I was like, and that we had won, I was like, one winning ticket, and we won! Oh my gosh! Like, all of a sudden, I didn't want to share it for just like a second. But I remember I called Gilbert at like 3 in the morning when we realized and where it had been purchased. I had gotten up in the middle of the night. Gilbert was watching, I think, the Dodgers on TV, and he had left like little morsels of food on the counter, and I was yelling at him because we got ants really bad, and I said, where did you eat? What did you bring home? And he said, L&L Barbecue. And so when I read the AP wire that said winning ticket was purchased at L&L Barbecue, all of a sudden I called Gilbert and I said, you need to like get up. Did you buy a ticket? Where'd you buy your ticket? And he's like kind of groggy and he's mad because I woke him up and the dog's barking, and I was like, go check the ticket. So he checked the ticket, and then he thought I was lying, and I'm like, how could I be lying? You have the ticket. I'm reading you the numbers. Like,
I never thought you were lying.
So it was, well, you questioned me an awful lot. So, but it went from like real excitement to just relief. I don't know how else to describe it. Just, hey, I could pay that Visa bill, like in full, and I could still have money left over, and you know, just all the things that you think about. But prior to that, I used to play a game with Gilbert all the time, and he never used to play with me. It was always like, what if? Like, what if, I had like 5 eyeballs and 1 leg? Would you still love me? And he never played. He never played. But one night we were driving, like a few weeks before, we were driving to Outback Steakhouse, because I like my bloomin' onion, and he played the game. We passed by the lottery office, and I said, Gilbert, what if we won the lottery? What would you do? What would you do? And the conversation started with how we would want to give back to our community, specifically in education. And we both have our own personal reasons that I'll let him share his and go from there on the next question, I guess. But it really kind of just started, and we really, it wasn't just like a superficial conversation. It was a really in-depth conversation of things that we would do, how we wanted to give back through education. And then all of a sudden, I guess God was listening, because it happened. And then it was like, oh my gosh, we have to start the foundation.
Right. Well, if I may, so I because I'd never met anybody who'd ever won the lottery, right? And so when I had the opportunity to be seated next to Gil at a lovely event with the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, and I was told who he was, and I know my day job is really to look for resources for what we do, but I'd never met anybody who had ever done. So I asked him, what it was like, and between the two of you, this story could go really long and big, and some of us would really like to get into all of that. But even then, the premise, which is what you do. So if you could just push us out a little bit more, because yes, you can pay the Visa bill, and yes, all that kind of, but still, that moment when it goes from it's real,
Right.
and now you're going to do something with it. To me, that's really where the two of you, and I get emotional every time I talk about you, and I'm going to try really hard to do this and not do that, but that lots of people talk about it. You actually did it.
Yeah, Jackie kind of referenced it, but we had that discussion, and I remember it in a lot more detail. Is that we specifically, when she asked me that, I told her, I would really want to start a foundation where we could focus on education, particularly in the Latino community, because I think there was a need. And where we were living at the time, Pico Rivera, California, we saw that need, personally. I think at the time it was, only 11% of the population of the town has a college degree. They were doing a great job of graduating the students from the high school, but nobody was really moving on to college. And when they did, they would end up usually just going to the JC, but I think in one of the panelists in the other discussion, or the discussion on data, was talking about really how these kids would they would go part-time, and then life would just start taking over, and they had to end up dropping out, and that was really happening to a lot of kids that we saw in the community. So we said, I really think we need to start a foundation and kind of give back and really focus on education, because for me, it was always education transformed my life, and it gave me opportunity, and it really enabled me to do a lot of things. And I always tell people, lottery or no lottery, I would have been okay. We would have been fine. And the reason for that is because I have my education, Jackie has her education. And so we would have, even with her shopping and her high Visa bill, we would have survived. But for a lot of these kids, it's times have changed. I always tell people too that the factory the factory in the city is not there anymore. You can't go graduate from high school and go get that job. You have to do other things. You have to create opportunity for yourself, and the best way to do that is through education. And so, really God was listening to us that day when we talked about it and what we wanted to do, and He gave us this gift, and then that was the first thing we did. Was we went to church that morning to thank Him, and then we okay, now we got to start a foundation. And so we got the wheel spinning on that. I don't really like that People magazine. We did the article. They did the article in People magazine.
I never read that article, so.
But they, they really made it sound like we went out and we spent all this money and did lavish things. But really, the first thing we did was we really focused on giving it away. Well, not all of it, but giving a portion, a portion of it away. Was we gave a scholarship to my alma mater, George Washington here. Well, we got a grant to create scholarships. We did the same thing at Jackie's alma mater, USC. We made, other donations. So like right off the bat, we gave away $5 million. And then we went and started our foundation, from there. And then just from there, just started like really focusing on programs and different, things that are really supporting kids, and giving them opportunity for higher education.
One of the... Early in our getting to know your inspirations, your commitments, and the structure, the fact that you chose a particular community, Pico Rivera, the fact that there's logic, there's a connection with your two institutions where you graduated from, and then the sort of scope of what you wanted to do and how, as you were leveraging your resources, how to have impact. One of the things that I know that we were extraordinarily impressed by you, Gil, was that, okay, you've won the lottery, you set up a foundation, you're doing all this stuff, and then you decide to go to graduate school. Mm-hmm. And during that time, we had the privilege of talking with Gil, who was admitted to Brown University, but there was a brief moment where he was even talking about interning, having a research project connected to Excelencia. And I raise that not to strut our stuff, but to display the groundedness with which you approach this commitment that you're making. Washington, D.C. is a place that's filled with lots of egos, and lots of folks trip over them. Mm-hmm. And in the short time we've come to know you both, that's not something that seems to get in your way. So talk a little bit about that, whether it's confidence or clarity or commitment for you, but I know your work in terms of the foundation focus that you have as well. Talk a little bit about that.
Our original intent when we thought this, we just kind of dove into this problem. We knew there was a need, but we didn't really know how to address the need. And our first thought was, well, we'll just, hand out scholarships. We'll create scholarships, right? So we partnered with the Hispanic Scholarship Fund to give out scholarships in our community. Nobody applied. And we're like, what happened? Why is it, there's like free money. Why is nobody like applying? And we started to realize there just really was not an expectation for these kids in themselves to go on to college. And so we needed to start building that expectation within them. And so, the reason I decided to go to grad school was really, just take a step back. Really, what that got us going, that really actually got us going into this thing, right? Because it's, how do we kind of create that? What are the issues? Why aren't they like, why don't they want to go to college? Why is there no desire or anything to do this? What issues are they facing? And so from that point on, we just kind of really dove into this, dove in deep to just started getting involved. Jackie is really involved in the high school that we work with there in Pico Rivera, and the city and everything that goes on. I decided to go back to grad school because I really wanted to understand the issues of that the students were facing, going in these underserved communities. So I went and got a master's degree in urban education policy, and at Brown. And really, it was a great program. It was a great learning process, and we really just, started applying things that I learned in that program to what we were doing in the community and the way we were kind of creating our grants. And one of the things I started doing at Brown, I started to do, and why I actually changed what I was going to do for my internship there, was we were actually creating the Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Institute at George Washington. And I thought, what, I'm just going to work on that, and that's going to basically be the program, the thing that I'm going to work on. So basically, while I was at Brown, I worked on creating the Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Program as part of my internship, and then we were able to implement that after I graduated at George Washington. And which is really cool because I thought, how many other students actually got to really implement their program? But it is, You know, the whole thing about going really is, like I said, when we went into this, we just we got to go into like full speed ahead and really just kind of dive. And so we had to learn what the issues were. We had to learn what the difficulties that students were facing, why they weren't going to school. And we just started creating things. And really, we started another nonprofit and, to kind of really address the college access. So, I mean, we basically created like a college access program to basically support our scholarship program that we were trying to do to get people into it. And it's just been great, the work that we do with the kids and the students and how motivated they are. And now that we're actually giving them this opportunity, and you can see that really that they want it, they just didn't really have anybody there really helping them, to find the path and get them on there. And we're seeing incredible things going on there.
Yeah. So in your question, you asked if it's confidence, or I think it's just being naive on some level and not really knowing about some of the things that exist already, and just having that goal of trying to ultimately get just more kids into college, from our community. So when you're kind of just focused on that, sometimes you don't always notice the other things that are sort of surrounding you. But I think, having Gilbert go to, I'm kind of learning from him as we're going, because he's saying, oh, we did this in school, or oh, this is the data, and this is why we need this, and I kind of just go along with it, because obviously it makes sense. But for us in the beginning, when we did have that situation where we didn't have enough kids applying to the scholarship, it really kind of set us back, because everyone thinks, I'm sure everyone here who's involved with education hears, I can't afford it. I'm not going to apply, I can't afford it. So it just made the obvious solution was, we're going to give you money and then you can afford it and you can go to these great colleges. So when that happened, it was really, it was eye-opening to sort of realize what some of those other issues were. And so yes, money is a huge issue, but it's getting them to understand, just to want to go to some of these colleges. Because even now we hear some of the students saying, well, if I don't get into Harvard, I'm going to go, or if I don't get into UCLA, I'm just going to go to the community college. And I'm like, do you understand the disconnect between why? I don't understand. So sometimes it's just getting them to understand the differences, but a huge thing for us too, we realized, was really involving the parents. Not just in the process of going to college, the college applications, the FAFSA and all that stuff, but really taking the parents with us on the college tours. Because if the first generation, their parents have most likely never been on a college campus, and the most access or understanding of a college has either been some sexual assault on campus, some shooting at USC, which has happened a couple of times, something disastrous that has gotten on the news that has gotten their attention. So we wanted to take them along with us on to some of the colleges, specifically some of the ones that Excelencia has, highlighted as being the colleges that are really good at graduating Latino students and underserved students, because that's important to us. If we're making an investment, I don't want someone to go spinning off for 10 years in college. I want to get them in and get them out and into the workforce, and giving back to their communities and being those other role models for the newer generation. So, we like to take them, and the conversations between a student and the parents are completely different. So we like to try and take them to some of those universities, and others as well, because they need to be exposed. And then also having a student panel of kids that look like them. And in many cases, kids that actually graduated from the high school that we deal with at El Rancho High School, and to really hear about some of the challenges, some of the fun times, what's it really like to be away from college or commute. Some of them are commuters, so that they really have a really good understanding and bearing of what it's like to go to that school. And for the parents, kids always want to know, where, is there parties? How hard are the classes? Where do you hang out? Is the food good? For parents, it's like, are my kids safe? What happens if they're sick? What happens, how much food do they really eat? Are they eating? It's a completely different conversation. So we try and we ask those schools, if you can please set up different panels for us, so that the parents can be involved. So that when as much as we give them college access programs and sit with them and walk them through, ultimately it's the parent that is sitting across the table with the 2 letters of acceptance, deciding for them where they're going to go. And they have a much better chance of going to UCSB And because mom and dad went on that tour and they saw the safety, they saw the medical facilities, they talked to, the financial aid director, they got to see what the campus looks like, and they feel good about their child going to that school. As opposed to even a Harvard, which they've never been to, and they don't know, and what is this, and oh my God, that's really down to the bottom line. So we have to give those parents the tools to have a better understanding in their decision making, because that's really what's going to define for the kid where they're going to go. So it's so some of that, like I said, has just kind of been, I just sort of plug along because I kind of just don't pay attention because my focus is this, and I will do whatever I can to give the kids as much exposure to colleges and getting them to go where they want and what's the best fit. Because even getting into some of the most prestigious colleges doesn't necessarily mean it's the best fit for that particular, for the student.
Mm-hmm.
And the two of you have charted this course, and you follow your heart and you follow your convictions. What does success look like for you in terms of what you are doing in education?
The success is helping these kids out and putting them on a path to get higher education, and watching them succeed is really the enjoyment that I get out of it, and it really makes me feel that we're making a difference. So even like last night and this morning, I had met this individual who, this kid's going to USC. He's working on his bachelor's in aerospace engineering and astronautical, and a master's degree in astronautical engineering at the same time. So
From USC.
At USC. So I'm like, how can I help this kid? And I just basically, put him in touch with like two people, and basically I think I found him a mentor today, who somebody that we came across and that we met, and who was actually working at JPL, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to him. And kind of making those connections and giving these kids opportunity like that is really how I know we're succeeding and we're making a difference in people's lives. Because, this kid has an amazing story. He's a first generation college student. Both his parents don't really speak English that well. I think he came from Mexico, but really he doesn't have those connections to go out and kind of make to meet somebody, or to do that, or to meet somebody at JPL, or to meet like a former astronaut. But we've been able to do that for him and create that opportunity for him and connect him with people that are going to work with him and mentor him and help him along in his career. And that's really all we're trying to do, really, is just create opportunities for these kids and give them a chance to succeed, because we know it's going to make a difference in their life, it's going to make a difference in the lives of their future generations, and it's going to make a difference in the country.
Well, for me, I think just the initial quick fix, if you will, of success is every May watching some of our students graduate and making a commitment. So we're also a part of the Michelle Obama Better Make Room Reach Higher campaign. And one of our students actually was picked, one of 17 in the country, to be on the advisory board. So
Student advisory board.
Student advisory board, yes, student advisory board. So again, kind of giving them exposure, but she did that all on her own. We're there to support her. She applied, and we helped her. Our program director helped her apply. But so it's really seeing them take part in the college signing day, and then actually going off to college. Every summer I host a college summer send-off luncheon for our kids, where it's just a time that they can get excited, and we invite some alumni back to kind of exchange numbers and make sure that they've got some people out on the campus that they can talk to or refer to if they get there and they feel lost or overwhelmed, as well as parents to kind of get together and talk to each other and hopefully calm the fears. And it's really then just kind of seeing them all go off and, fly. And this year I asked them, can you please send me pictures of your move-in day when, so I know that you actually are there, nothing happened in the summertime that changed that, but it's just, again, kind of being part of that process and then just seeing them really flourish, and so that's like the immediate fix, I guess you can say. I think ultimate success will be as our kids start graduating and the percentage goes up for the city of getting a college degree in every peak or every home. That's our goal. So We just had, kind of differently. So we've had some kids graduate that were part of our scholarship that did actually get our scholarship. But now this last school year, we had our first cohort of kids graduate. So now we're actually starting to get data and actually keep our own records to kind of see where we are and navigate through that. So when everyone in Peak Rivera has a college degree in their home, then I've reached the ultimate goal. But until that happens, I mean, that's still something to kind of plug along and see. But as Gilbert said, also just, I realized as part of it that there were some frustrations because you still have kids who are, I want to do this, I want to do this one thing. And I'm making this up, I want to be, a teacher. Okay, which is great. But have you ever thought of being a principal? Have you ever thought of being a superintendent? Have you ever thought of working in the county office of education, the state department of education? I mean, for what you want, what is it that you want to do? I mean, you only know the one thing because that's what you see. Just like, oh, I want to be a nurse. Okay, well, have you thought of being a doctor? What about a surgeon? What about a brain surgeon? What about a hospital administrator? I mean, so sometimes it's just opening up their eyes to all the different things that might be in one particular field. So we did host this year, we hosted a day in space. And so we had people from JPL, we had people from Virgin Galactic, we had 2 astronauts there, and we had breakout sessions of all sorts of different things that you could do. And my favorite part is when you see families. So yeah, you might see a high schooler that is getting ready to graduate, or it might be a junior, but he brought his younger brother who's in 4th grade. And they did that. There was a little boy, and he was dressed up as an astronaut, and I was like, Jose Hernandez was there. Hopefully y'all know who Jose Hernandez is. He's like my hero. So I'm like, you have to take a picture with this kid because, I mean, this is where I want to start it young so that I'm not getting him in high school and just having these conversations that they've been thinking about being an astronaut, about STEM, about math, and understanding maybe what they have to, possibly have to do to get there, and doing well in school, and learning to read and read well, so that when I get them in high school, they're already at another level. I'm not sort of playing catch up with them. And so to me, I like to do that. I like to see families out there together and kids just realizing that their dream is a possibility because there's a guy that looks like me, that has the same background as me, standing right here next to me, and he did it, so I can do it. So, I mean, it's kind of changed a little bit because now it's not just about college access. Now it's just like, I want you just to know what's out there. And you may not like it, it might not, but at least you thought about it, and at least you know about it, as opposed to, I remember when I started in journalism, I just knew I wanted to go in journalism. Like, oh, yeah, I always had to be in the middle of it, right? But I knew I didn't want to be a reporter because I was too scared, and I didn't want to be an anchor. That's not true, I kind of wanted to be a reporter, but I was still scared. But I didn't want to be an anchor, but I didn't know what else you can do other than makeup artist or lighting person, and I want technical, and I didn't want. And so when I got an internship and I learned all these great things that you can do within that industry, it opened up my eyes to what I thought I wanted to do. So it's kind of really doing it earlier for a lot of these kids and helping them with those opportunities.
And what you've created, both in terms of the 2 foundations and the programming that you've put together and the analytical work that we've been able to do with you, all of that fills up a life and could keep you very busy, and yet still you want to do more. So how as a family have you reached this decision that this quest to serve your country involves this next step?
I think, so what Sarita's talking about is I'm running for Congress right now in California. Thank you. But, it sounds kind of corny, but it's the truth. Is that I have always served my country. I served it in the military. I believe I'm serving it now in the work that we do with, helping these kids. Because I said, by providing with the education, I know in the end, it's making an investment in them, is making an investment in the future of the nation. And then, I think now there's more to be done, and I think the only way to kind of really get out there and really do it at a large scale is it has to be, done with the support and the help of government. And, education is an issue, is very important to me, and I'm very passionate about, and it's something that really drives a lot of other topics and a lot of other subjects. If we really invested in our education system, it's not only going to help our job market, it's going to help our economy, it's going to help with the cost of health care. I mean, it affects so many things. And that's really what I want to do. And, you know, somebody's got to be in there to kind of check the administration and everything right now, especially with the individual who's serving as a Secretary of Education. But yeah. So, you know, and that's really why I decided to kind of do this, because we need people in there to kind of go in there and kind of get government working again, and that are really going to put, you know, service ahead of their own personal goals. And I think I've always kind of done that, and I think that's what's needed, and that's why I decided to run. And Jackie, you know, was kind enough to let me do it.
Yeah, he kind of asked, and with his little puppy dog eyes, and he did ask my support. But I mean, I think, you know, every day you put the news on, I don't have to tell anyone in this room, right? You put the news on, and there's something else that is like dismantling education, something else that is being taken away from the very kids that need it the most and that we all are trying to serve the most. And I don't know how, you know, he can ask me and then I can say no to when everything that we're working for seems to be dismantled piece by piece, chiseled away every day a little bit more and more. So obviously I'm supportive. You know, sometimes I think I even get a little bit more competitive. Like I'm like, oh no, you got it, oh no. You know, he's a little bit more calmer in the demeanor of it. I go a little bit more crazy. But yeah, so I have full support. And I know what that means. I mean, basically I'm kind of a single mom Monday through Friday. And then, you know, then I get my husband back for a couple days, and then Monday through Friday he's out on the campaign trail. Actually, that's not even true. Last weekend too, you weren't really. So, but anyway, we're trying to find a balance.
It's taken over our life.
Yeah, it's taken over our lives, and which has made some of the other work sometimes a little bit harder to focus on. But you know, I'm lucky that we have people that help us, and my mom and his mom they're helping us. So
We truly are proud to know you. We are amazed at the sustaining quality of what you do. Your authenticity is among the many things that you bring to this work, and that it's very clear that you have a purpose, as you say, and lottery or no lottery, this is something that you committed to. The fact that we could provide Excelencia community the opportunity to get to know you just a little bit.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you, and but really, you know, we kind of hit it off, I think, from the beginning, you know, talking about education, having that same focus of really how can we improve the educational opportunities for Latino students in the country. And so, you know, I've really, and you know, Deborah didn't put me up to this, you didn't put me up to this, but I just really want to thank you for, I've really enjoyed working with you guys and working on the research project that we did, that you guys did, but really kind of, you know, supporting our efforts and what we want to do, and really kind of going in there. And that project was about, you know, how do we get more Latinos, and where are the best universities for Latinos, right? And we really need to kind of push our kids and our students into the top schools and challenge them to kind of really, to, you know, to test themselves and challenge themselves to really think and really put that emphasis on there that, you know what, you can do it, and start dreaming big, because, you know, the best schools, we need to put our kids in the best schools, and we need to make sure that they're going to the schools that they're qualified for, and we should never end up settling for anything less. And I'm glad that we've kind of been able to work on that together, and I just want to thank you for that.
Absolutely, and our expectation is that we will have the opportunity to work together going forward, and that perhaps we'll be able to do it closer, because you'll have an office.
Yeah. Well, thank you.